Thank you very much. So, quick fact, or maybe trivia. February 9th, 1964, the Beatles debuted on Ed Sullivan. Do you know who followed the Beatles? Poco, the tricycle-riding monkey. After following you two, I feel like Poco, the tricycle-riding monkey. There's been a lot of great information here. I am the last one, which is great because this has been action-packed, but I know we're tired. So I'm last, that's good. Downside is I probably sound like Charlie Brown's teacher to everybody. So I'm gonna try to get through this. They did say since I'm last, I could go as long as I want, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna try to get through this and really talk and focus on data. Data is interesting. Data is one of those words that when you say it, everybody just shakes their head and nods. Yes, data. We need more data. Nobody ever says we don't need any more data. Nobody ever says, no, data's bad. But nobody really always knows what data means, right? It means something different. Data means passengers to the airline, right? Data means something different to the automakers, right? Data means something different in construction. Most of the time when we talk about construction and data, we kind of look at it in a historical sense, like the data that we've gathered over the last 10 years. We have historical models, we have this. But can we use that? Can we use data to be predictive? Can we use data to have more control? And that's what I want to try to talk about today. Some of these ideas might be a little out there, but if we want change, but don't change, then we won't change. This was actually a quote from somebody that I was talking about. Last slide. So, unlike Brian, last slide. At the end, Troy, thank you for rehearsal. This is where Poco just actually drove right off the stage. So, again, unlike Brian, I don't need to lose weight, and you could tell this, so let's try something here. I'm gonna order some donuts. Again, I have suits. I don't need new suits. We'll do Dunkin'. How many people are here? Okay. Although, is my acting this good? Yeah. Thanks, Troy, for really ruining the big reveal there. So anyway, the point that we were trying to make with this is if I stood up here 20 years ago and told you that I'm going to order donuts with my phone, nobody would have believed that. Maybe somebody would have, but then I don't know. But now it really is this simple. And point of fact, I did actually order donuts this morning just like this, right? So you have to think about this. And again, if we want change but we don't change, then we won't change. So can we start thinking a little bit differently? I can buy a car in the next 4 hours and have it delivered here. Right? Would we thought that 10 years ago? Probably not. Talk about Amazon. It was books. Remember that? And now what can we get? Holy smokes, we can get everything. CarMax, OpenTable. The list goes on and on about how we're using on-demand data. So can we use that for construction? Can we use data to actually help control that, to actually forecast, to actually procure works in a much more controllable manner? So just a quick question, what would we think it would cost to paint 1 square foot in here? Just yell something out. 20 cents. 22 cents. Anybody else? $1. All right. So we had 20 cents, 22 cents, and $1. That basically was a hard bid situation right there. We just got 3 bids back. 20, 22 cents, and $1. Man, that 20 cents sounds good. Who said that? 20 cents. Were you going to spray that on? You're going to spray it on. What if I asked you to roll it on? 23 cents, change order. Right there. So not much has changed. I get that we use data and we use technology to help us with project management. We get to use data and technology to help us drive efficiencies in our processes. But when it comes to actually deriving and delivering costs, we actually don't use it that much. The reality is the same scenario that I just used here. How much does it cost to paint a square foot of wall? The cavemen did it, right? Somebody wasn't very good at cave drawings, and so they went and found three cave painters, and they said, hey, how much does it cost to paint this cave? One guy said 20 brontosaurus bones, one guy said 22, one guy said 100. We had no idea. It's the same way. That guy that said did it for 20 cents, we said, well, we want those little cool elk things. He's like, now it's 23 cents. We weren't really clear. So how do we use data to control and predict construction costs? That's really what we're talking about here. So let's go back to that paint example, right? 1 square foot of paint. You have to break it down, right? We as construction people, and my background is in construction. I grew up building airplane hangars in the heat of Texas. I've sat in a hot construction trailer, so I know exactly what you guys have gone through. I've worked with people in your position before, so I know. So we tend to think of construction and labor as this whole, right? Or construction as this whole. But if you break it down and you use data, at the end of the day, to paint 1 square foot of wall, it's material, it's equipment, and it's labor, right? So if we can put that together, we can have data points that can help us be predictive, right? So start with what kind of paint. Say we want to use that 1 square foot, we're going to use Promar, Sherwin-Williams Promar 200. That's the type of paint we want. So then we go to the spec, we go to more data, we dig a little deeper. So Sherwin-Williams says that gallon of paint can cover 400 square feet, should cover 400 square feet. We, as owners, can say, okay, that's what Sherwin-Williams says, that's what the expert says. That's gonna cover 400 square feet. I'm good with that. I don't want a contractor that's gonna come in and push that and maybe make it 700 square feet or 600 square feet. And I don't want to ask somebody to make it 200. We want to say 400, right? So now we have an idea. We take into account industry standard waste. We know the paint, and now we can know the cost. That gallon of paint is $36 at our Sherwin-Williams. That's close to us. So some simple math will tell us that it's 10 cents per foot. That's a data point. That's something we can use. That's a mutually understood point. So now you take equipment. Well, we're going to use a roller, right? We're going to have tape, we're going to have tarps, we're going to have all that. So you can identify that data. And then the labor component, and this is just for an example, but we identify what the labor is. What do we pay a painter in our area? Is it union? Is it prevailing wage? Is it Davis-Bacon? You have to have some conversations around that. You have to get some real good info. But once you identify what that is, once you make it fair, well, then you can use the same math. If one person gets $36 an hour and they can paint 360 square feet in an hour through the American Paint Association, that labor is 10 cents. So you can put that all together, material, equipment, labor, and you have 27 cents per foot. That is the cost. So if I were to tell you, after doing all the research in here, finding how the closest Sherwin-Williams here, knowing that we're going to roll it on here, and knowing that labor in this area is $36 an hour for a painter, would we be comfortable as a group saying, okay, it's going to cost 27 cents. I know what I'm getting. I know the paint I'm getting. I know how much it's going to cover. We would be comfortable with that. Data provides that for us. We can be now predictive with it. We can be analytical with it, right? So now what you have is you have a data point. You have some parameters around it. You get the full description of the task, obviously. You tell it what's going to be included, what they're going to be asked to do. You have modifiers, right? Because we want to make it understandable, right? So if we're asking them to come and do maybe only 20 square feet, well, then the cost is going to go up, right? But if we're asking them to do 20,000 square feet, there are some economies of scale that might go down. So these are all data points that you can use. Now, what's really, really important is everybody's data point is going to be different, right? If you're in Owensboro, Kentucky, for example, your data point is going to be different than if you're in Atlanta, if you're in Dallas. Labor rates, things are going to charge. So it is something that has to be built specifically for your institution, but it can be. And then you expand it. A lot of times when people start to look at something like this, they say, okay, I can see the paint. I can understand the paint, but not a whole project. But actually, All a project is a combination of those little tasks. If we're going to renovate this room, well, there's a task to do the carpet, that specific carpet. Maybe it's Mohawk. There's a task to do those ceiling tiles. Maybe they're Armstrong. There's a task for that light. That's not a GE light. I doubt there's a task for that light. That's pretty specific. But you can begin to put those together. I don't know where I'm supposed to point this, sorry. So now what you do is you have all of these data points, right, that you've put together specifically for you. So how do you turn that into action? How do we turn that into action? Well, what we do is we ask our contractors, we show them that data, and we ask them, what would you do? What would your markup be on this? Because we're looking for consistency and control. So we would ask them that. We would put parameters around that. That markup would be different based on where we're asking them and when we're asking them. And what I mean by that is, most of the time, if you can get about 6 hours of productivity out of a crew. A general contractor can get that. So if we're renovating a lobby in a medical office building, we know that we're probably going to get about 6 hours productivity. But if we ask them to renovate a nurse's call station in the NICU unit deep inside a hospital with ICRA and life safety, sound controls, off hours, short stoppages, their productivity is going to be less. So it's actually going to cost them a little bit more. So looking at your organization, you put those parameters around it, right? Are you going to do acute, non-acute, critical? If you're in California, OSHPD, it's not OSHPD anymore now, it's hiking, right? There's different requirements that you have. Research, locations, are you going further out? Things like that, right? But you ask your contractors to deliver that to you. So once that gets set, you have all of these that are set, typically call them adjustment factors, and depending on your organization, you may have 5 or a dozen or something like that. But again, you outline that. You tell them when. You can see here, normal working hours, non-acute. What are your hospital normal working hours, right? So now, once you have that set, you have your data, you have your tasks. So every time a project comes up, you just go grab that task, you put in the quantity, the contractor puts his adjustment factor, and that's your total. You have much more predictability, much more transparency with that. And then you use data and technology, software, to help execute it in a much, much quicker way. No longer are you guessing. No longer is it, 20, 22, $1, roll on, 23. Now it can be very, very predictive and very, very analytical. And transparent. Each item is outlined when you do that project. So the big picture is that the data boom has really made on-demand construction a reality. Now again, there might be some people that are sitting out there going like, there's just no way this will work. 20 years from now, we'll be talking about how, yes, it was. 20 years ago, we didn't. So if we want change, but we don't change, then we won't change. It does take change. Oh, my goodness. My donuts are here. So as I'm wrapping this up, so these donuts represent, or this box represents a project. It could represent renovating that lobby. It can represent that NICU unit, right? And when you open it up, you have all your tasks. You have your paint, you have your ceiling tile, you have your flooring, and sprinkles, which I will be getting into. But you put all that data together and you have a project, one that you can predict, one that you know the costs are going to be. That's it. Donuts. Anybody? So thank you all very much. I appreciate it.